What's up, party people? So I get asked all the time, how do you make a podcast successful? Or even like, what makes a podcast a success? And honestly, I don't have a simple answer for you because success looks completely different depending on what you actually want. If you're a coach, maybe success means like giving out your free, your lead magnet and getting signups for that. Maybe it looks like getting your actual paid coaching slots filled up. Or maybe it even looks like getting your high ticket one-on-one clients. But here's what most coaches get wrong. They think success means views and downloads. They're chasing numbers that look good on paper, but do absolutely nothing for their bank account. I'm going to show you a case study, a legit case study from one of my clients that legitimately made over $1 million in revenue in just 50 days from a podcast. Just strap your seatbelts on because this is going to be a crazy ride. But by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to track for your coaching business instead of wasting time on vanity metrics that unfortunately just don't pay bills. So unfortunately, us in the fitness industry, we're obsessed with views, likes, and download numbers. I see it every single day, and I'm not going to lie, like I'm still there, but I understand why. We've simply been conditioned by Instagram and TikTok to think that's what matters. You can look jacked on camera for 60 seconds, throw up a quick tip about, protein leveraging or like a new exercise variation. Well, side note, every exercise like ever has already been shown. Your little twist on it might get some attention. And maybe it does hit the algorithm or whatever. Whatever the case, boom, hundreds of likes roll in and it feels good. I'm not going to lie. It feels awesome to see comments, to see likes, to see views go up. It looks successful. People like your posts, but they don't buy from your posts. You're stuck in the social media illusion. You think because something gets engagement, it's working. But when was the last time someone bought your coaching program directly from a 60-second or less reel? I'm not saying short form content is useless, but if that's all you're doing, you're leaving money on the table. Here's some simple math from someone who is not very good at math. If you were to publish a 15-minute video and only 5 people watched it, that's, again, I'm not the mathematician here, that's 75 minutes total of watch time or total consumption, right? That's the equivalent of 75 Instagram Reels or 75 TikToks. 5 views all of a sudden doesn't seem so bad when you think about it that way. Again, like this ain't a scientific experiment, all right? So don't crush me with that one, but you get the idea, right? You kind of see, you pick up what I'm putting down. And anyway, so here's where the real magic happens. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. This is just business 101. You can't build that in 60 seconds. I mean, you could try, and you could, I guess, yeah, if you were to put up 75 different posts, somebody might get to know you and like you and trust you. But I mean, that's just not the way to go. So something that you can do, though, is if you focused on long form content where people actually get to know you, then you're going to be able to go deeper, right? You're going to be able to really flex your knowledge and tell stories and give them a reason to believe you're the coach who can help them. That's what podcasting does that short form content simply can't. But I know what's holding you back. Your body looks world class. You've spent years in the gym perfecting your physique, dialing in the nutrition, becoming an expert. And now you're terrified to put out your own content that looks cheap and flabby compared to how you look. You don't want to put out something that doesn't match your brand, so you procrastinate. You overthink. You wait for the perfect setup, the perfect mic, which is this Heil Sound PR37, and the perfect lighting. But here's what you need to remember. Day one in the gym, you didn't know what you were doing. You probably had terrible form. You definitely weren't lifting, super heavy numbers. but you kept showing up. You got better, you learned, and now you're the expert everyone turns to for advice. Your podcast and your long form content is the exact same thing. Episode 1 isn't going to be perfect. Episode 10, it's probably going to suck too, right? But you'll never get better if you quit before you even start. The coaches who win are the ones that realize vanity metrics don't really matter. They don't care about the optics. What matters is whether your content is moving people closer to hiring you. Look, 5 engaged viewers who binge your episodes and then book a discovery call, that's a successful podcast. 10,000 views from people who never take action? I'm sorry, but that's just noise. So let me show you what actually matters and what success really looks like. This is what happens when you focus on the right metric. And again, this is going to be different for everybody. And in this scenario, it's very exclusive to this client, but keep an open mind and understand, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm pretty sure they think this is a successful podcast. But anyways, one of my clients pays me over 6 figures to run their podcast. They're in the home service industry. So I think heating and air, plumbing, electrical, again, stuff that you need when you need to hire somebody to fix your house. That's the industry. It is not exactly the sexiest topic. They're never really going to be famous talking about furnace maintenance. Maybe, who knows, right? But they know this and they're completely fine with it because their goal was never fame. Their success metric was simply just raising the internal culture, being able to educate their team members, and also just overall morale, right? They're trying to hype each other up. What they wanted to do was they wanted to showcase people crushing it within their company. They wanted to teach their technicians and salespeople without forcing them to read emails or, buy books that nobody was going to read anyways. What was cool is they recognized that when their guys were, in their trucks driving between different jobs, excuse me, they were listening to podcasts. So what I thought was freaking incredible, they decided to meet their team where they already were. So they hired me and we published a podcast for this company. Now, on one occasion, we recorded a 3-part series with one of the best sales experts in the HVAC space. This guy's an absolute legend at selling heating and air systems. And honestly, I learned more from this podcast than almost any other show I've ever worked on. Okay, if you want the link for it, then let me know in the comments. It's definitely not in this same space. It's definitely not in the fitness space, but there's a ton to learn from it. So let me know. This is right up there with the stuff that I've learned from working on the Power Project. The content was that good. Anyways, during the interview, I threw out a simple challenge to everyone in the company. From time to time, I jump into the conversation as well. Again, think about me on the Power Project, but for heating and air. It's this podcast world is amazing and I love it and I'm so grateful for it. But basically what I said was get an accountability partner and try some of this stuff out, right? Implement some of these strategies and hold each other accountable. Build a little competition. And, basically hey, I tried this thing from the podcast and I tried that thing from the podcast and, I sold this much, I sold that much. So I kind of just said, hey, challenge each other. Anyways, the company itself loved the idea and they loved the podcast so much that they actually turned it into an entire training program for all of their companies that they own. They didn't just create PDFs and workbooks from this podcast episode. Well, technically, it was a series of podcasts. It was a 3-part series with one guest. But anyways, they built an entire training program with hours of training around this podcast series. They mapped out everything that was said in the interview. They broke it down into actionable steps, and then they straight up told their team, hey, starting November 1st of 2025, we're implementing everything we just learned from our own podcast. We're going to track every single result compared to where we were at this exact same time last year. So this is going to get a little tricky because now we're in 2026, but from 2024, November 1st to whatever 50 days later is, they compared that to what they did the exact same thing, November 1st, 2025 to 50 days. But anyway, so just kind of laying it all out there. Here's where it gets really interesting. This company at this time, so at 2025 in November, they were actually down 10% in revenue compared to where they were the previous year. This is a Bay Area based company, and the weather in Northern California, for some reason this year, has been insanely comfortable. Like no extreme heat, no extreme cold. So in HVAC, good weather means fewer service calls and fewer systems being sold because everybody's comfortable, right? There's no need to fix something if you're good to go. So they had fewer leads coming in than the year before. So, and even though we had better conditions outside, them as a company technically had worse conditions, which meant fewer opportunities, and they were already behind where they were the year before. So anyways, they implemented everything from that podcast for 50 days and tracked every single result. Last year, during those same 50 days, they did $12.5 million in revenue. Fast forward a year after implementing the training from the podcast, they did $13.5 million. That's technically they did like, it was 12.4 something, but I rounded up, and then they did almost 13.6. Whatever the case, they actually did over $1 million in revenue. And again, that's with fewer calls than they did the year before. And again, with worse weather last year, which meant more calls. Anyways, they had a better conversion because of the training that they learned from their own podcast. Again, their idea or their goal, their success metric is completely different than a lot of people. But do you think they would consider their podcast a success? They pay me over $100,000 a year to run their podcast, but in 50 days, they generated over $1 million in revenue. I think it's safe to say that they would claim their podcast is successful. So, with all that being said, let me ask you this question. What if your podcast didn't need to get 1 million downloads? What if it just needed to teach the right people the right things that move them closer to hiring you? That, to me, that's what real success looks like. Not vanity metrics, not views that don't convert, revenue that you can actually deposit into your bank account. And I promise you, this is not just like one crazy outlier in, again, it's a random industry, but I promise you this works really well in the fitness industry, health and fitness. So let me show you. My client, Nico, he's in the health space. He started podcasting with me, and after only 3 months, he was selling his $3,000 course. Not because he had millions of downloads, not because he went viral, but because he built trust with the right audience through long-form content that actually educated people and showed that he knew what he was talking about. He kind of has become the go-to guy in that space. That was, I believe at that time, it was like he had less than 300, not 300,000, 300 subscribers. Episodes were getting anywhere from, I don't know, like 50 to 100 views each. So in total, like under 200. Pretty like incredible, right? And that was a cold like listener, I guess I'll say. They weren't in like the email newsletter. They weren't like in the Facebook group, they just binge watched his podcast. It's pretty incredible. My boy Robert, he's a business owner. He's in the fitness space. Randomly one month, he sold over $3,000 in supplements without running a single ad. He didn't even have like a direct pitch to his supplements in the episodes. He just consistently showed up, taught valuable information, shared his philosophy on nutrition and training. And when people wanted to support him and get the products he personally used, they just bought them, without really even like questioning it. That's the power of know, like, and trust that's built through podcasting. My boy Josh, who also happens to work with me here at Pursue Podcasting. Now, really cool story, but he followed the steps in my like OG course from like when I initially released Pursue Podcast or launched Pursue Podcasting. He just followed that course step by step, and he gained 10,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. It's pretty phenomenal. I know we just got done talking about how like subscribers and all that stuff don't matter. So here's what actually matters. He just sold his biggest coaching package ever, right? The subscribers, like, those don't pay the bills. The person who binged his content got to know him, trust his approach, and then invested in high-ticket coaching. That's actually going to pay the bills. So to me, I don't know about you, to me, that's kind of what matters the most. So we do have a bit of a pattern here. None of these wins came from chasing views. They came from strategic content that built the know, like, and trust over time. There's a massive difference between content that gets attention and content that gets clients. Look, I'm not going to say attention is easy. This might hurt a little bit, but it's kind of cheap. I promise I'm not being a hater. I have posted shirtless pics on my IG. They do get likes. Again, it feels good. It feels good to get that appreciation. Excuse me. But you post a shirtless photo or a transformation photo with some generic motivational quote or whatever, and you're going to get likes all day. Again, like, don't kill me, please. I'm sorry in advance. But if you're a female, again, no disrespect, but if you post, like arm day workout video and the camera is on the floor, post like aimed straight at your butt, you're going to get a lot of attention from dudes. But clients, like, that's you're barking up the wrong tree, or you're trying to get you know what I mean? Like, clients come from proving what you're talking about, demonstrating your methodology, and giving people enough time with you to believe you're the person who can help them reach their goals. Not really putting out what I think, I don't know if the kids still call it these days, but thirst traps, right? Like, that's going to get you a lot of attention. You might even get some like brand deals and that sort of thing. But like actual like clients, if that's what you're striving for, it's probably not the best way to go about things. And this is why testimonials shared on a podcast convert better than any ad that you could ever run, right? So when someone hears a real client talking about, or you talking about a client who got real results in a long form conversation, that's infinitely more powerful than, like whatever you can do on social media, especially, again, going back to the thirst traps and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you can educate and not just entertain, that's where you're going to start actually making a legit impact. And on top of that, you're probably going to land some clients. Long form gives you the space to actually teach. You can go deep on a topic. You can address objections before someone even thinks to ask about them. You can tell the stories that make people feel connected to you. You can share the mistakes you made so they don't have to make them, but also that just makes you become more real, right? That's how you build an audience. Backtrack. Yes, you're definitely going to build an audience that way, but they're not an audience that is just like on the couch, flicking through channels or whatever. That's how you build an audience that doesn't just watch, they actually buy. So if you're sitting there thinking your podcast isn't successful because you only get a few downloads per episode or a few views, you're measuring the wrong thing. The question isn't how much or how many people are listening or watching. The question is, are the right people watching and listening? And then are they taking action? Because I'd rather have 50 listeners who turn into 5 coaching clients than 50,000 people who listen and don't do anything. Revenue, again, I'm going to just keep nailing this down or drilling this down into your head. Revenue beats vanity every single time. I don't care. I need my bills paid, and unfortunately, I can't pay my mortgage with likes. Although, maybe in the future, who knows? Like some Black Mirror episode, right? That could definitely happen. But with all that being said, of course, yes, you should absolutely create content that people want to watch. I'm not saying ignore quality or ignore whether people are engaging or not. But if you are going to measure something, here are 5 things that you can measure as a coach to see if you're moving in the right direction. First and foremost, this one's really easy. Just questions about your coaching programs, right? Whether that's in the comments or in the DMs. When somebody asks, like, how do I work with you, or what does your program include? That's a legit qualified lead. That's someone who moved from, just a person consuming your content to considering hiring you. Make sure you track some of these as wins, and then also try to figure out all right, how did you hear about me, or what drove you to send me this message, right? Because whatever, if they can say oh, it was episode 5 or whatever, do more of that content because obviously that resonated with that person. It's going to resonate more. The next thing is, again, another obvious one. These are all obvious, by the way. But whatever your free lead magnet is, whether it's a newsletter, a free program, or whatever it is, I don't know, maybe work on not doing those so much. But if you are telling people to go download your free guide or join the email list, and nobody's doing it, then something has to change. Either your CTA isn't working, or your target audience isn't the right audience, or whatever it may be. Something needs tweaking. So think about that. But obviously, if they are signing up, that's somebody that's jumping into your ecosystem where you can nurture, I think nurture is the right word, that person, and potentially get them to hire you as their coach. Third, another very obvious one, program purchases directly attributed to the podcast content. Ask every client, right? Every new client, or maybe even old clients, if they're still watching the podcast, how they found you. Excuse me. Sorry. It's a little dry today. It's a little windy out here in Sacramento. If they say hey, I binged your podcast and knew I had to work with you, that's the biggest win possible. And then of course, if they say oh, I watched this episode and I couldn't help myself, I had to hire you. Make sure you do more of that content. Take a little breather real quick. By the way, somebody told me strawberries and cream, Dr. Pepper Zero was good, and they were not lying. This stuff is incredible. I know we're talking to a lot of fitness people. If you're in the health space, just shut your ears off for a second, just because of all the artificial sweeteners and whatnot. But anyway, this stuff's incredible. The one thing you got to watch out for, it has 47 milligrams of caffeine. So I basically treat it like an energy drink. But anyway, sorry, I got super sidetracked. We were talking about fourth. Okay. Another very obvious one, but your high ticket offer sales. If you're getting, what's it called? Discovery calls or whatever. I don't think it can be any bigger than that one, but make sure you track what episode that they found you from. These are going to be your best clients because they come in already believing in the process. Again, it's probably somebody that's been consuming your content for a while. So obviously, again, just make sure you track that stuff. Fifth, this is a toss-up. I put this here just because this means you're actually making, I almost said some noise, but you're not making noise, but you're making an impact if your peers are interested in you. And what I mean is, like, if you get invited onto bigger shows to reach new audiences with your message, like, that's huge. When another podcaster wants you as a guest, that's like the highest, like, thank you and social proof, because you know that you're showing that you know what you're talking about. And then again, you get on their show and they open you up to, you get opened up to a completely new audience. It's pretty incredible. And again, same thing. Ask that podcaster, like, hey, like, how did you find me? Like, what made you, decide to reach out to me? So that's, again, another huge metric to measure. Brain's getting kind of fried now. So anyways, the one CTA rule that will change everything for you. Pick one thing per episode, one call to action. And I would even say one call to action per, like, podcast, period. Pick one thing, just one, because two is too many. I say this all the time to my clients, and I'm going to tell you right now. If you're telling people to join an email list, check out your coaching program, follow you on Instagram, buy a supplement line, you're just going to confuse them. Confused people don't take action. Think about, you're at Applebee's and you have 5 seconds to make a decision on what to order from that menu that has literally everything. It's kind of tricky. Although, I don't know, you tell me, does anybody go to, I haven't been to Applebee's in I don't know how long. I just remember their menu was ridiculous. It had like American, Mexican, it just had everything. Anyway, sorry for getting sidetracked. Pick one thing that matters the most to you and your business that's going to drive everything forward and push everyone towards that one thing. And most importantly, make sure your podcast description has your main offer at the very top. Not your Instagram, not your YouTube content, none of that stuff. Like, again, make that your, whatever that CTA is, like, or the success metrics. I got a little like sidetracked here, but whatever that thing is that you are hoping to drive people towards, make that your main thing, right? So to finish rambling here, you get to decide what success means for your podcast. For most coaches, it's client enrollment and revenue, not vanity metrics, at least the successful ones. But more importantly, and probably the reason why you're even into all this, is because you get to help people in the first place, right? The lives you impact with your knowledge, that's the huge win. That's such a huge success metric to keep track of. Never forget that. Figure out your success metric and put it front and center and let everything else follow. If you need help building a podcast that drives real coaching revenue, check out my group coaching program in the description. It's going to be at the very top. Little meta here, right? I'm telling you how to do it, and I'm going to do it myself. We meet twice a week to work through pretty much anything. So, like, I have this kind of like unstuck guarantee where you come in stuck and we get you unstuck. You're going to come in with questions. You're going to leave with answers. You're going to come in with roadblocks, and we're going to destroy those roadblocks at the end of every call. That's at pursuepodcasting.com. Again, link in the description as well as podcast show notes. So again, figure out your success metric, put that front and center, and just pursue it. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.